Welcome to Heart of the Hero, Tools for Successful Minds. Today we are talking about some extra special for you. We're talking about confronting your darkness. We're talking about this nebulous, crazy thing, which is confronting your own darkness. And what does that mean for you if maybe your interest is piqued, so to speak? What we mean is there are situations that you can land in, right? That have to do with your growth, that have to do with, kind of getting what you want, and directionally you might be moving towards that. But there are things that happen inside a lot of times that feel heavy, right? They feel negative. They feel difficult to sort of move beyond. And so today, I think it's important that we kind of cover some of that in a way that makes it. I'll tell you this much, but by the end of this video, if you choose to stay through this video, by the end of this video, you will understand why it is that you can confront your own darkness in a way that you can get beyond it, right? The things that make you upset, the reasons why you're unhappy, the sort of negativity in your life that maybe is kind of just nagging at you or pulling you down. You will have the ability to understand how to move beyond that and why it's useful to you. And that might be a counterintuitive thing, but there's a lot of ways that it could actually be useful to you. And we're going to help you think about that today.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think getting started off, it's important to know specifically how you struggle. Where in what areas you struggle, and if you've started the grind, or you're starting your study or your practice, and you're at the beginning of your journey, or maybe you're even just started, or you're halfway through it, and you're going at this you're going at it, and what you'll start to feel is what you've heard us talk about in other episodes is this resistance, this kind of tedious, monotonous mindset where what you're doing is now a task and a chore, and you start feeling like you don't want to do it, and you're having to like push yourself and pull yourself to do it, and you're dragging, and you're wanting to be relaxing or doing other things, or you're getting distracted by other things and people, and this resistance that you feel is one of those conditioned responses that we have, where you've been making changes, right? And you've kind of gotten used to doing what you're doing, but really at some point along the way, you probably started doing more, because I think when you first start off, your grind and your study and all, whatever it is, you tend to not do as much as you maybe can. At first you like schedule a certain amount, and you're like, I'm going to do this much a day or this much a week. And then, after doing that for so long, you're kind of like, yeah, I can do this. And then you realize like, oh, I could be doing more. And you start actually pushing yourself, you really start pushing the boundaries. And then again, you start feeling this resistance that you felt towards the beginning, and you're kind of curious what that is. And it's the same type of conditioning. It's that you've had a pattern, and you've built this pattern in this, routine for yourself, your body, and your mind, where this is how much we do, and this is the breaks I get. And so you've changed things up. You've altered the regular, and I think it's important to know how you suffer. Does it, when you feel the most stress, when you feel the worst, when you feel the darkest, are you getting sad? Are you just looking at the things in your life that were already making you a little sad, and you just find them a little more unbearably sad? Or are you anxious because there's so much to do? I think that's a common one, is that since we all have so much to do as far as taking care of our lives and remaining social and while staying at the grind, because I just heard Gary Vee say this. He was like, he's like, if you're ambitious, then you'd be working, and so I think it's one of those things where we show our ambition by putting ourselves in positions to go through some suffering and some struggle, and
Right.
I say suffering, but it's suffering for the greater good. You're suffering for a good cause at this point. You're suffering for change for the better. And so, how are you affected by the struggle, or by the grind? How are you struggling? Is it sadness? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it, is it laziness? How, is it gluttony? What is it? What habits do you develop that are poor for you, or not helpful for you? Or is it a poor self-esteem? Is it self-hatred or negativity? Is it bad mindsets, limiting mindsets? Whatever it is, how do you struggle? Identify that. Identify how you react to pushing yourself as a person. And because when you know this information, it kind of prepares you, as if you kind of expect it. It's not such a bad surprise. It's kind of like, right, yeah, I knew you were coming, because you always come when this happens. When I push and I start to get anxious because I start worrying about how I'm going to handle all this, and eventually it just becomes routine and I'm relaxed and I'm used to it. And so, when the more you know about yourself, the more you know about how you react negatively, the more you can control your thoughts, your mind, emotion, and behavior, because you're prepared for it. You're not taken off guard. You kind of have already a plan of action to deal with it.
No, it's yeah, I think that speaks to a lot. And I think the regular, right, the day-to-day grind, the in and out that we really, most of us experience through the job or the family or the relationship or the people you talk to, whatever, like the day-to-day experience that we kind of all have, it can really be draining. It can really be, it's almost as if there's this darkness, like in your own experience peripherally, right? There's this darkness that's just outside, right? It's just outside of who you are, of what you think, of the things that people say about you. It's like, well, is this person saying something about me, or maybe I'm not sure about this, or maybe my job's going to fail, or there's just all these possible things that could happen that really, the representation, right? The meaning is that they are the fear of whatever it could be, because it could be anything. Anything could happen. And I think a lot of times as individuals, we get caught up in that, and we get, it gets internalized. Now, it's not that that's not something that's useful. It can be, right? It can make you very aware. It can make you very aware of where you are. It can make you very aware of the life that you're currently living. But sometimes peripherally, it's almost as if the dark in you, right? The things that you're scared of, the things that make you maybe a little bit afraid about what the future holds, they're right outside your door, and they're knocking, and you don't really know how to maybe move through those.
Mm. Well, and I think that's the tough thing, is that you said the solution right at the end there is that really the only option is to move through them. There's really no moving around them. There's no tricking. You can trick yourself, and there's ways to keep yourself in good state. And that's that's something that I can brush over. But the state of mind you're in when you go to do your work is very important.
Mm,
And I think what you'll find, and I think what you'll find is the attitude that you've had throughout the majority of your day. Say you go to work for the majority of your good portion of the day, and then you come home and you kind of spend time pushing yourself and doing some things that are going to change your life in the future. Well, you'll find that the mindset and the attitude that you've taken on all day is most likely the mindset that you're going to end up in when you go to sit down and do what you want to do, and do what you need to do.
mm.
Because if you spent the whole day being lazy, not really wanting to do anything, and being negative, and just saying negative stuff, well, when you get home, you're just gonna be lazy and not want to do anything and say negative stuff. Your body's kind of, you're just like in this funk, or you're but you'll find if you've spent the day dedicating yourself to giving 110%, and getting stuff done, and moving efficiently and doing your job excellently, and getting the most you can get out of your job, then I think you'll find when you get home, you're already in this zone of like, all right, let's go. Come on. I've been doing this 110%. Let's go. Boom. I'm moving. You kind of like you build momentum in a direction as your day goes on. And so, and so some of that darkness can be kind of controlled by controlling your state throughout your day, controlling being mentally, consciously aware of, where your thoughts are. Are they on negative things and negative places? What are you feeling? Do you feel, upset about something? Is there some kind of turmoil in your emotions going on? Keeping yourself thinking about positive and good things, and actually keeping yourself in a state of wanting to achieve things and get stuff done. Keep that kind of mindset, hold the success cap on all day,
Mm.
because the more you let your mind roam on this, and you even build the habit of, yeah, I remember like, working on the manufacturing line. It's one of those things where you don't really have a lot of time in between parts. You know, you're on a line, you build your part, you wait for another part to come to you. It's not that long. It's like 30 seconds to a minute and a half. And I remember, but I was so dedicated, and I am so dedicated. I'm so committed to getting the life that I want, and helping people, and that I would have these books on self development and psychology and these such, and I would read in the 30 seconds to a minute and a half in between each one of these parts, because I did the math, and I'm like, well, you know, I could spend an hour a day reading at work while I'm getting paid and do my job to its full. And I would even like move faster in my job so I could have more time to read, you know?
Mm.
And so it's like, and what that did for me is like, when I got home, I was like buzzing with like, how can I be so efficient? Like, how can I fit more time into what? How can I do more? Man, I'm already thinking about this stuff. Let's go read this, and let's go right now because I'm already thinking about this. Like, my mind was hot, ready with information, ready things to think about, original thoughts that I already started, like, you know, forming in my head that needed to get out. I didn't have to get myself into a state. I was already like prepared to work and prepared to think about this because I've been thinking about it all day. You
So
know,
like that
so
was already in you.
yeah, I was kind of there because you kind of, I put myself in the state of like, how can I, you know, push myself and get the most out of my days. And by doing that, I was like activating my mind with all these like facts and information about, you know, the human mind. And so when I would get home and to do either do my study or write, I was like kind of just already there, you know, I was already like in that mindset. It didn't take me much to just, all right, and sat down. I was like already right there in it, you know?
Mm. Yeah, no, and I think that there might be some confusion I want to clear up, or maybe it's curiosity. I'm not sure which it is, because we talk about how your mind plays a lot of role in this stuff, and sort of the patterns that you're in, and maybe where you're going. But this idea of eating the sun, this idea of eating the sun, it maybe it's metaphorical, maybe it's symbolic, but it's also true in your own experiential life. And I want to kind of explain maybe how that works, and how you can see that as something that could be useful to you. It could be something that maybe opens some doors in your own mind for things that you could do as a person, right? So if you go back far enough through history, right? If you maybe travel through sort of our historical timeline as a species, as culture, you'll start to notice that there are myths that go very, very far back, and they're very deep, sort of maybe now in our collective understanding of what it means to be a human, right? Well, a long time ago, essentially what people did was they were afraid of the night. They were afraid of the dark. There was a fear that was associated with the unknown, right? And maybe it's bears, or snakes, or tigers, or demons, right? It was that you just didn't know. You didn't know it was coming, and you didn't know it was there. And so the fear, right, the way that you feel inside, it was always very chaotic, right? And people write about this in mythology, about gods, and angels and monsters and all this kind of thing. But one of the main points that I think is useful to us now, as we live in the society that we're in, right? Well, you could imagine a world in which the darkness, right, was purely representative of what they didn't know. It was when night came, you went inside because things could happen that you just had no control over, right? Maybe there's a fire and you have no way to put it out because you don't have any access to water, or you don't have
Mm,
food, right? And you can't find any, right? So all these things, all these possibilities could open up that were dangerous for you. They were evil, they were negative. And so a lot of people, there was this idea in culture that as the sun went down, right, as the sun sort of moved beyond the mountaintop, what would happen is people would start to become afraid. They would go inside their homes. They would live indoors. They would get their swords brandished at the door, and double bolt things because you didn't know what was coming, right? Well, a lot of times what happens in life is that there's a similar situation that you get in, where the sun goes down on what it is that you're doing. And what I mean by that is you fall, and fall is probably the right word. You end up in a situation where you didn't plan it, right? You maybe weren't consciously thinking about it, but it's a situation where you're very unhappy. You're very you're very skittish, you're very scared because you don't know what's coming. You don't know if maybe you'll have the next meal, or you'll have the next be able to pay your next bill, or if your relationship will break up. Are they cheating on you, or is the person who maybe you're trying to get a job from not interested? You just There's so many things that you don't know. There's so many things that we can't see. It's almost like we're reliving this pattern right now. And I think that the thing to become aware
Mm.
of, right, if maybe you're listening now, is that this is something that everyone experiences, right? It's the night, it's I think in psychological literature it's called the dark night of the soul, because that's what you experience when you come to this place of murky, disidentified darkness within yourself, because you don't know where you're going. It's
Well,
confusing.
and to put that a little more practically, like it's, it's kind of it, in a scenario where you're working hard, or you just started working hard, or you've been working hard and you're only
Mm,
halfway through your grind, and there's this when that struggle comes, that resistance, that anxiety, that depression, that emotional turmoil or turbulence in your life that we talk about, when that comes, you know, um, the reason it can feel like darkness is because you can't at that point you can't see anything. Like, one
mm,
of the base levels of all of the areas that I've mentioned has been fear. Like, I would say fear is probably almost all the ones that we've mentioned. If it's sadness, anxiety, or depression, it's usually based on some sort of fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of of whatever, fear of the unknown. Like, because
mm.
and when you get into those emotional turmoil states, it's tough to see anything anymore, where you're kind of in this struggle, you're in this cloud and this haze where you don't really necessarily, like, man, is this what I want to be doing? Should I be doing this, or am I supposed to be doing this, or I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, and even though you've already gone through this before, you've already, like, walked yourself through this process of what do you want to do, and you've led yourself here, and you've probably done it a couple times by now, but you kind of lose sight of that, and all of a sudden everything seems unfamiliar, and you're just like, I don't know where to go. Or maybe you're going along doing everything as you're supposed to, and things change just out of the blue, because life does that. Like, and you have to make adjustments, and all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, you get a phone call, you're not gonna be able to do things the way that you expected. And like, oh, okay,
Mm.
thanks. And it's like, there's this moment of I
Yeah.
don't know about you guys, but like, when I get things like that in my life happen, it's like this flight response kind of triggers in me, where I'm just like, I have to, like, I just have to go, like, I'll just, and shortly after I'll kind of come to and realize that I am like, okay, no, I'm fine, or I'll explain it in my head, and I'm good, or I'll calm down. And but it's because I don't know what to do, like, I don't know where to put my hands, and because you have no information to go on, or the information is clouded from you. The sight is clouded from you because it's dark around you. You no longer can see more than 3 feet ahead of you. And there could be, like, people coming at you with swords. They're coming, like, with intent to kill you, and you have no idea because you can't
Mm,
see far enough in any direction, because you're either clouded by, like, all this emotional turmoil, or you're just feeling the monotony, or you're losing sight of what you wanted, why you're doing this, whatever it is. You're giving yourself this darkness by allowing yourself to get into these states. You need to give yourself things to focus on. Give yourself a torch, something, a light that can lead your way, because things that are like that get your eyes up and looking, ahead, because the things that get you inspired, the things that get you feeling ambition and passion, it's the one that, like, actually gets you hype and gets this, like, energy out of you, whatever it is. That's your light, that's your torch, that's your guiding lamp. You have to, like, keep your eyes focused on that, because that's what keeps you from getting lost in that darkness. If you don't have a clear-cut goal, clear-cut things that you want, and some way of reminding yourself of those things regularly. Like, I do affirmations twice a day, right before I go to bed, like in bed before I wake up, and then wake up directly afterwards, because these are the things I want. These are the things I want to
mm,
achieve. And I tell myself exactly what I want to be, what I am, and what I'm going to achieve every single morning and night, because this is a way of building good process. This is a way of building good routine. This is a way of 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 reminding yourself of the things that you want. It's building a routine of reminding of yourself those things, and reminding yourself to look at the lamp and follow the light that you have to guide you out and through the darkness, because you've got to go through it. We talked about that earlier. There's no like getting out of that unless you're just born and bred, have amazing parents who taught you just like how to grind, like you're just a bookworm when you all through school. Then you don't understand this, and that's great for you. Like you might not understand this because you're just like, I don't understand what's so hard. I can read at like 90 words a minute, and it's just like, yeah, okay, it's cool, but not everybody can do that, and even those people that couldn't do that and weren't bookworms still have goals, still have dreams, and that doesn't stop them. So you need to build a habit of reminding yourself to keep an eye on the things that you want, because that can be a good light in the hard times when you kind of forget, because everything's just kind of falling apart or changing, or you don't know what you're going to do. It's just like, look up at that lamp and be like, okay, that's what I want. So how do I get out of here? Like, follow that, because that's what you want. Whatever that means, you got to do what you got to do to follow that,
Yeah, and maybe you're in a situation, as personally, maybe you're in a situation where you can remember a time when uh, you felt better, where you felt better. You've been in a situation, you can remember a situation where your life was just different. You had more things, or you had more access to stuff that you liked, or people treated you better, or you had a better relationship, or you were just happier for whatever reason, and maybe you could remember that. But it's not where you're at right now. It's not who you are feeling like you are right now. And it could be anything that's blocking that. It could be anything in the way. It could be the Trojan horse, right, in the mind or the heart or the body or the world, that's blocking you from understanding how to get out of that, right? How to get out of that negative space, how to get out of that darkness. From There's a feeling that comes in the body, and it's this weird heaviness, right? It's like you doubt yourself. You understand that you doubt yourself, or you have a feeling and you know what it is, but you resign yourself to it. You say, okay, well, this is just who I am. This is what I'm dealing with. This is the life that I'm in, and I'm just going to stay in it because this is what I deserve for whatever reason. And so it's almost as if these feelings can overtake you, right? They're the Yeti, right, at night, the monster, and it's like, if you resign yourself to that, it becomes this repeating cycle of talking and thinking and feeling how much you don't like the situation that you're in, right? So I think a useful thing to do, and maybe you have some words for someone who's maybe at the very bottom barrel, at the end of their rope, so to speak, right? Not sure. They're hoping, right? But they're not sure if they could maybe move past that. Maybe there's something that you would say to them, maybe from your own experience, or just something you could think about that would be useful to them.
I mean, hmm. I mean, do you want your struggle to be for nothing?
Mm,
I mean, do you want to have done all this just to like quit and fail? And another question, like, what drove you to start pushing yourself in the first place? Because you wouldn't even be in a position where you're at your end of your rope if you hadn't have pushed yourself, and you pushed yourself because you wanted something, you pushed yourself because you had a goal. You pushed yourself because there was something you actually wanted to achieve in your life, something that you felt like you could provide value in. And there's somewhere inside of you that wanted to make that change. And so you've made that change, and that's great. And you're struggling, and that's awesome. You want to know why? Because that's how you grow. That's actually what growth is. If you're not struggling, then you're too comfortable. The thing is, comfort, and as a recent discovery of mine actually was is actually like that we crave this comfort. And I didn't even realize on how many just societally accepted ways, like
mm,
like right now, Greg and I are doing this 30 days of cold showers, and we're not going to get into that. You can do your research. It's a real fun
mm,
thing. They do a video on it on TEDx, but it's because being comfortable keeps you still. If you're sitting cozily on your couch, nuzzled up in a blanket with a book or warm a cup, hot cocoa, you're watching your TV show, and somebody knocks on the door, you don't want to get up. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to move. You're just like, I'm good, dude. Like, can you get that? Because I'm good right here. But being uncomfortable builds character. Being uncomfortable and responding to it by walking through it, because
mm.
that's what it feels like. And I've described this, in conversations with you before, where it's just like walking into the wind. You know, it's like it's on a really windy day. You know, those ones where the wind kind of catches you and pulls you a direction, you know, while you're walking.
Mm,
It's like finding exactly where that wind's coming from directionally and walking straight into it and choosing to do that continuously. And you think, when is it going to stop? And it's like, well, you know, it'll stop when it stops. It'll stop when you've broken all the bad habits that you've built up for yourself for the whole for how long. I mean, if you're really struggling that bad, just I ask you, why? You know, why are you struggling? Is it because maybe before you had really bad habits?
mm,
You know, I mean, yeah, what's your expectation level at here? Because I know that at first when I had really bad habits. I just wasted time. I just pissed time away. I didn't care about my future. I wasn't even thinking about it. You know, I wasn't even diligent in my home life and anything. You know, I was lazy at work. And I had all these bad perspectives, you know, in these in this mindsets that limited me. But it was kind of like I realized that when I changed, it was the most difficult, like the first time, especially that I started doing things that were outside the norm and pushing me in different directions. It was very uncomfortable. I was getting anxiety. I was like pacing, like not being too productive, ripping off all my nails. You know, and because I was just not used to doing that. And what happened is over time you build kind of an endurance to it, a callous to it, a numbness to that kind of struggle. And it's almost like the weight that you've been carrying, or the seemingly heavy feeling that you get when you're just, oh, I can't do this anymore. It lightens. You know, your muscles grow, your mental muscles
mm,
grow, and you're able to push through. And suddenly, the load that you have in your bearing isn't really all so tough. And honestly, it's at that point that, you know what, you add more. You know, you add more, because guess what? That's how you grow. You put yourself in an uncomfortable position. You step outside your comfort zone on the amount that you're used to handling, and you make yourself grow by doing that. You know, and so if you're struggling, you're just growing. You know, you're just becoming stronger. It's just weakness leaving the body, because that struggle comes from the bad habits that you have built up till now. And honestly, you're not going to start seeing the positive benefits of the new lifestyles that you have for a little bit, because think about it. You've been building these habits for what, you know, 20, 25, 30 years, and now you're starting to change. It's like, well, now don't get me wrong, it doesn't take 30 years to make new habits, but it does take a little bit of time to start seeing in consistency of new good habits, to see the benefits of those, you know. And so keep strong, you know, like if you're struggling, it's because you're growing, and you have to grow, and you have to get through this to get through this. And if you don't get through this, then I ask you, what life are you going back to? Because there was something you weren't satisfied about, you know, there was something you didn't like, there was something you wanted to change. And so is that still going to be there waiting for you?
mm, mm. No, no, it's deep. And I think struggle is kind of one of the universals of the human experience. And this is maybe not a popular idea except in some circles, but it's almost like you have to kind of see what you don't like to know what you do like. And kind of maybe back to the story I was talking about earlier. This is really illustrated a lot, right? And the story is essentially about, you know, culture and what happens with myth and what happens with belief and what happens with people and where they're going, right? Well, you may remember, if you're listening, right, you may remember how I mentioned that some cultures, they believed that, you know, the darkness was evil, and you know, they should be scared, and, you know, demons came out at night. And but there were other beliefs at the same time, actually. And the Egyptians, they had a very interesting, beliefs about what darkness was. And what they believed was, at night, right, that the night would come, and you would feel that fear, you would feel that darkness, you would feel that evil creeping in through the doorknob, right? And it's right there. But what they believed was essentially that at night, right, their gods, their strength, figures of strength, right, they would fight, in the underworld. They would gnaw it out, right? And sometimes that happens inside, right? Sometimes there's part of you that is wants something. There's part of you that wants something really bad, but another part, maybe a deeper part, or an older part, or some part of your mind that really just doesn't agree with what you're doing. It'll fight you. It'll fight you really hard. Oh, this is the reason, and here's all the reasons why you suck, and you can't do this, and you shouldn't be able, right? All this stuff will appear. It'll just come up out of nowhere, as if it had just appeared from the abyss. And in the same way, In the same way, the Egyptians, they believed that at night, right, their gods, their figures of safety, whatever, right, would come out and they would fight each other and they would fight each other and they would fight each other and they would fight each other. And then at the end of the night, when the sun was coming back up and the people were waking up and everyone was sort of becoming more aware that there's that energy you feel in the morning, and they would wake up to that. And in that moment, they realized that the good had won, right? The night had not been overtaken, and they felt safer, they felt better. And I think that's a huge contrast to some of sort of the other understandings of what that means, and what we can take from that, the thing that we can use now, because culture is very different now. Things are not the same as they used to be. But one of the things that kind of remains constant is the fact that you will struggle. You will have situations where you feel uncomfortable. You feel like the things that you want to do aren't aligning with the things that that you need, right? The things that, might be easier, the things that you could say to people to kind of brush them off or not have a conversation, or to get them to leave you alone, or to get them to like you more. You could say all these things and you could do all these things, you could take all these actions, but maybe they don't align with what you want. Maybe they don't align with where you're going. And I think a huge part of growth is understanding that thin line that you need to start to walk to actually move beyond your own darkness, to move into your own future, to sort of see your north star, so to speak, and get in a better position.
Mm. And we wouldn't know light without dark.
Hmm.
We wouldn't know happiness without sadness. We wouldn't know success without failure. And it's the reason we have words for these is because we have opposites. We have things like that you have to have a concept for both. And so through this, to go through, there's often you have to go through a lot of these to get to the other side, where you might have to put yourself through some tough times to be happy. It might not just be so easy as like, okay, I'm happy. And actually, I would go as far as to say that you can do that, but that's a little bit more uh,
Hmm.
because of my own conscious practices. But it often, if you're kind of goal oriented, and you have a lot of things that where your happiness is very attached to the way that your life is. And I think that's a common thing. I think most people would say that their happiness is often very attached to um the things that they have in their life, the people that they have, the type of relationships they have in their life,
Right.
and the lifestyle that they're able to live, a sense of security and happiness and safety. And these things are all good. But it's because we do not want the darkness. We do not want the fear. We do not want the insecurity or the danger or the pain. When we fear these things, it's because of those that we seek things like comfort and happiness and joy. And so we need to be aware of the benefits of having things like darkness so that we can appreciate the light.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's how you grow. I think that's how you can grow through sort of understanding the process of where you're weak. Because if you understand where you're weak, you can fix it, right? You can work on it in a way that actually gives you control over where you're going. And I think ultimately, if you're still listening and you're staying tuned, and maybe you follow along and you're a repeat visitor, right? You want to get somewhere. Like, you want something different for your own life. You want, maybe to make better decisions, or it could, maybe it's not your decisions. Maybe it's just you want to do different things, right? You want to hang out with different people. Like, all of these things, all of these outcomes, they start inside. They start in the mind. They start in the choice, honestly, the choice to say, okay, like, maybe I could do that. Like, maybe I could move forward. So if you had to, if you maybe were talking to a group, right? And there's probably a group listening now, and you know who you are, because if this resonates with you. But maybe if you were talking to a group, what would you say to them if they were here, like they were here, and they're ready to sort of understand what it means to move through their own struggles and be with that and grow? Like, is there any advice that maybe from your own experience, or something different that you could share about that?
I'd say just, don't try to apply so much meaning to it. Often we are very identified with our emotions and the things that we're going through, and try to recognize that any struggle that you're going through, that's a result of, grinding and pushing for the things that you want, isn't, that's a result, it's a symptom. it's not you, you know. Don't get so wrapped up in the meaning behind why I'm feeling sad and why I'm and try to let it pass over as just kind of weather passing around the globe, you know. Like, you know, sadness is going to come, you know. Okay, well, so I'm sad, and be sad and let it go, and, you know, don't let it affect what you're doing, you know. So you're angry, okay, be angry and let it go, you know. Just be present and be doing what you're supposed to be doing, you know. I think it's very about being present in each moment, you know, and not letting the emotions and thoughts pull us from what we're trying to do and trying to achieve, you know. So you're anxious, so be anxious, you know, like calm your mind, you know, meditate, do whatever you have to do, but don't get so caught up in the why and applying meaning to all this and make it critical and turn it against yourself in some type of self-damaging, self-doubtful way, you know. You know, and when you said the words, you meant it, you know. You got to be with it, you know, where it's not something that you can just, and there's things you can do, you know. There's ways that you can make your grind less irritating, you know. Maybe like add music, take breaks every 15 minutes, you know, do 10-minute blocks, you know, 15-minute blocks, you know, do an hour block or something there, and then take an hour off and then do another hour. You know, you can spice it up, but realistically, you still got to do the work, you know, and that's still going to come, I think, with the same amount of struggle. So I've not really noticed any different way of, like, I've tried 10, 12 different ways of doing my daily grind, and it usually manifests, hey, that's my other dog. And it usually manifests in about the same amount of struggle and work that I have to put into actually.
But I think with the struggle thing, and I'm sure you've had this experience, and you can contrast it with mine. What you were talking about with being with it, right? It's true, but it's even more that as you sort of stay with your own struggle, as you grow with your own struggle, it's like you gain this ability, you gain this trick or skill that you didn't know that you could have. You didn't know that it was even possible for you to hold on to this, but you gain this ability to consume and carry more. Like, it becomes less of a problem to you, right? You could imagine, you're carrying a 10-pound weight or a 50-pound weight, and you do that for a month or 2 months or 3 months. Eventually it's going to become easy, right? You could double that, and it wouldn't bother you. You could still go about your daily business and it wouldn't be a problem, right? And in the same way, in a similar way, your struggle, it's not limiting you, it's challenging you. And that's a huge distinction. It's not limiting you, it's challenging you. And if you rise to the challenge, right, if you grow with it, what will happen is you'll start to notice that the things that you thought were difficult, the things that you thought were hard and a struggle, will become simple. They'll become easy, and you'll begin to look at them in a way that gives you power and control over them. And I think that's important and key, because if you have that, you can get what you want a lot faster.
Mm. Yeah, and, you know, you get power by moving through it. You know, after, especially after, because it fades. You know, you're not always struggling. So I think after the first,
Mm.
you know, a couple times that you're able to just push through it and be, you know, accept it and let it go, and then and push through it, you know, you'll find after a while it's easier to push through. I'm not going to ever go as far to say that you never have to deal with it. I don't know that I can say that I've not had to deal with some type of struggle at some point, whether it be very little amount at this point. But you know, that still times get hard sometimes, you know, and you got to push. And so I think when you find that you've done this, you know, you've gotten through and made the habit of pushing through the kind of hard times, it gets easier to get through them after some time. You know, they become less urgent, less critical, less intense, and more just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not really feeling great right now, but, you know, this will get better. I'll just keep pushing at it, keep at it. It'll get better. Keep up the good habits, you know, and so as long as you keep that up, eventually it does get easier to deal with the kind of tough areas that can come from pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone in the, you know,
Yeah, in the spheres that you're in. I mean, in the
yeah.
areas that you're in your own life, and maybe closing up shop here. Maybe you're tired, or maybe you got stuff that you need to get done, or you're energized, and you think you can think about the things that you're going to do. Maybe when this video ends, but whatever the situation is that you're in, I think it's important to understand that you are the one who's in control, right? A lot of times people will say, they'll tell you that you are not in control. You don't have the ability to choose. Someone else is sort of tyranting over your life, and something else that's not you is in control of it. And that's just not a true thing, right? You have the ability to make decisions. You have the ability to acquire information. And if you start to if you start to maybe use that in a way that you've never used it before, and you start to look at things in maybe some ways that you haven't looked at things before, it gives you a new set of opportunities that really can open some doors for you as a person. And I mean that in the sense that the things that you want are closer than you think, because the things that you want are only opportunities waiting to be found, right? They're waiting to be revealed, they're waiting to be discovered. And so by you starting to embrace, right, you begin to embrace the process of enduring the struggle, but not just enduring, right? You're taking this as if it were a challenge and growing through it. It can open a lot of it can open a lot of new pathways for you as a person. So I think one of the main things that's important to remember is that you are in control. And maybe if you've maybe if this has resonated with you, right, maybe if this has stuck with you, the things that you could remember and take home with you are the fact that you actually are doing this, right? You're living this life, you're moving yourself in your own direction. And as you sort of grow, right, it gives you more options, more decisions, and you can go more places.
Yeah, I mean that, and that covers it. That covers it. And the only way out is through it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So maybe if you like this, you share it or you subscribe or you do whatever it is that you think that is useful for you. But most importantly, um, remember that you've got this, you can do this. And for my own benefit, this is for my own benefit. It's this little selfish request here. Leave a comment. Leave a comment about something that you have struggled with, but that's not something that most people would understand. Like something that's maybe unique to you that you just it's been difficult for you, and you're moving through it, and you're committing to maybe growing from it or whatever. But I think there's sometimes things that are kind of unique to us, but we all struggle, right? So if anything resonates with you, go ahead and leave that in a comment, and I'll check it out, and maybe we'll have a conversation, or we'll see what's up. Like, it's all kind of a community deal.
Mm. Yeah, no, I mean, I regularly reach out and look for opportunities to talk to people about their problems and really get people in a good place trying to move forward. Often there's people online that I'll use social media I'll see people with these sad or depressing Facebook posts and so regularly that eventually I can't
Right.
help it. I have to be like, all right, like I know how to, like, at least some ways to help you. So it's like, all right, we're gonna try this. And a lot of times people don't really let me in, but sometimes they do. And when they do, they usually see some change, and it's really helpful. So like like leaving a comment and messaging us, and is a really great way to talk about some of the issues that we like to talk about and get a kind of firsthand one-on-one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess we'll see you guys soon. So stay tuned and do what you do. Take some action. We'll
See
see
you
you
guys.
soon.